After a nail-biter in the Senate, now Republicans in the House face their own pick-your-poison moment. At this hour, the House is at a standstill ahead of a final vote to pass Trump's sweeping domestic policy bill. Whether Republicans have the votes to pass it, that is an open question. Speaker Mike Johnson can only afford 3 Republican no votes, given unified and unanimous Democratic opposition to that bill. Here's House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries.
That's what we are going to do. Show up today, show up tomorrow, show up this week, show up next week, show up this year, show up next year, show up until we end this national nightmare in the United States of America and continue our march toward a more perfect union.
Yeah. The bill passed a key vote in the House Rules Committee last night by just 1 vote. 2 Republicans on that committee voting no over concerns that the bill would add too much to the national debt. That is one concern among Republicans. The other concern, the nearly $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, which could leave nearly 12 million people without health insurance. That's according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. Of course, not passing the bill leaves the Trump administration without a signature policy achievement. After all, it was called the One Beautiful Bill Act. Team Trump has told Republicans that failing to pass the bill is not an option. Many of the Republican holdouts met with Donald Trump today. Democrats have spent the day determined that Republicans pay at least a political price for supporting the legislation. In a procedural maneuver, Democrats tried to pass an amendment that would shield Medicaid from devastating cuts. Here's some of what they said on the House floor earlier today.
If beauty is in the eye of the beholder, then you, GOP, you have a very blurred vision. Let us vote no on this shameful bill and throw a punch for the children.
We're here because Donald Trump wants a 4th of July party to celebrate this garbage bill. He says, close your ears, close your eyes, and vote for this bill. Honestly, sounds more like a cult.
President Trump, you're either being lied to or you are lying to the American people.
And that is where we start today with Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania. Also joining us, congressional reporter for The Hill, Michael Schnell, and with me at the table, opinion writer at the New York Times and MSNBC political analyst Mara Gay. Michael, let's start with you. What is currently the state of play in the House?
Yeah, so I'm right now in the basement of the Capitol. I just came from the House chamber where essentially things are at a standstill. The House had a series of votes, 3 votes that were procedural votes in advance of voting on the final passage of this big, beautiful bill. Now, the 3rd procedural vote in this series was the key one. That would officially allow folks to open up debate and tee up that final vote. Now, in the lead up, a number of these hardline conservative critics of the bill were vowing to vote against that procedural vote. And if they were successful in tanking it, it would have brought the House floor to a standstill. So right now, as you can see on your screen right there, the House is still voting on that 2nd of the 3 votes. But because the votes aren't there, Republicans don't yet have enough support. Leaders are leaving this vote open. It was supposed to be just a 5-minute vote. It's been running for more than an hour and a half at this point, and it's going on as lawmakers are behind the scenes with House GOP leaders and other members of the administration with folks trying to get these hardliners on board. This is the hardline conservatives, several members of the House Freedom Caucus, who we so often speak about, who are concerned about the deficit impact the deficit impact of this piece of legislation. Now, aside from those hardline conservatives, as you mentioned, Alicia, there are also a number of moderate Republicans who are really concerned about the impact these Medicaid cuts and the rollback of green energy tax credits could have on constituents in their district. So right now, to sum it up, leaders are behind the scenes trying to pick off these holdouts in an effort to clear this procedural hurdle and get onto debate and then a final vote on the legislation.
Congresswoman Dean, you know, July 4th, that is an arbitrary deadline set by the President of the United States. There's no reason this has to be jammed through right now. Your sense of whether Republicans are going to pass this bill by his deadline?
I guess my question, Alicia, is why would anybody vote for this bill, Republican or Democrat? That's what I really believe. I don't know what they're going to be successful in doing, but I brought with me the bill which I assure you that most of the Senate did not read, and the House is struggling to read. But why read it? Because why would anybody vote for this? After all, it steals health care from 17 million Americans. I'm in touch with my governor, Governor Shapiro. He is pointing out exactly the harm this will do to Pennsylvanians. It is taking food away from children, from families, 42 million Americans. Who would ever vote for this? It kills jobs, right? In Pennsylvania, energy jobs, 27,000 jobs will be killed. So this is an economic drain as well. But let's remember what it's all about. This is about tax cuts for the wealthy that will blow up the deficit by $5 trillion. Take a look at these volumes. As I said, why would anyone vote for Trump's terrible, big, ugly bill?
As a producer, I just want to salute whoever created the prop, because I understand the production value that goes into making sure that that message is clear and that does not get lost. And to your point, they were writing this and redlining this as they were voting on it. Do you get the sense that Republicans in the Senate, in the House, even fully understand the implications of the legislation they have put forth?
Of course they don't. As I said, and as you pointed out, this is more than a prop. It's to say it is our job to understand what is in these bills. The senators vote on this not knowing exactly what was in the bill. I bet they love the part about no sales tax on silencers. Really, folks? We want to make silencers more plentiful in this country at the behest of somebody like the representative who owns gun stores? Conflicts of interest abound. The taking away of health care. Rural hospitals will suffer. I think of nursing homes. My own in-laws in their final years were in a very humble nursing home, supported by Medicaid because they had worked hard their whole life. Think of the anxiety this will put on our seniors who in their final years that deserve dignity. That's what they deserve. But instead, the callous folks who put this bill together, they're corrupt. Cruelty is the point. But how can these folks vote for it? I want to point out specifically in Pennsylvania. I asked my representatives in Pennsylvania, my delegation, in the Pennsylvania First, Mr. Fitzpatrick, an estimated 19,000 people will lose health care. In the Pennsylvania 7th, Mr. McKenzie, an estimated 24,000 people will lose health care. In the Pennsylvania 8th, Mr. Bresnahan, an estimated 28,000 of your constituents will lose their health care. That's something you want to vote for? And in the Pennsylvania 10th, Mr. Perry, an estimated 21,000 of your constituents will lose health care. Not to mention what's going to happen with food and agriculture and farmers. This is a shameful set of proposals. Many of my colleagues who have been here longer than I have said they've never seen a more morally bankrupt bill ever.
Maura, very early in this process, someone said something to me that distilled the axis on which Congress is making its decisions, which is, what are the rest of us willing to sacrifice in order for millionaires and for billionaires to get these massive tax cuts? And it does seem to me that that point has broken through with American voters. You've seen all the same polling that I've seen on this bill, but I want to underline something that seemed a little new. This is from the Washington Post today. Reducing taxes on corporations only has 19% support. 17% support for reducing Medicaid funding, 11% for cuts to SNAP. You don't have to dig too hard. You don't have to look too many polls. They're all saying the same thing. Republicans know this. They have Tom Tillis screaming it on the Senate floor. So what? So why?
Well, there's a couple things to say about that. First of all, a poll of Americans last month showed a 2-to-1 opposition among Americans for the bill overall. So there's no question that this is deeply unpopular. Also, if you think about the kind of populism and support for the middle class that is popular, we see that nowhere here. And that's something that drives the politics right now, both in Trump's base and among Democrats. That's nowhere here. So this is a wealth transfer to the richest Americans who already have the largest share of the pie at to a historic proportion already. So, there's no question that this bill is not something that Republicans, especially in competitive districts, want to go home and run on. I think it is an inflection point, though, for several reasons. One is that Congress has largely been kind of a do-nothing Congress, a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. The Republicans have so far. But this is a moment where the president is actually asking them to betray people who actually voted for them and for Donald Trump. I mean, the impact on rural America is stunning, and you see that in the coverage. Anybody who's paying attention knows, these Medicaid cuts are going to hurt Trump's voters. They're going to hurt all Americans, but they're going to hurt Trump's voters. An end to Medicaid expansion in certain areas. I mean, this is going to be brutal. And so I think one of the questions, too, is who is paying attention? Because the media environment is so diffuse right now. And so the Democrats, really, it's incumbent on them to make sure that the American people know who is to blame when they are suffering. You see kind of some daylight around that. I think Tom Tillis's decision to retire out of North Carolina, and kind of waving his arms, as you said, saying there's something rotten here. That kind of helps. You've seen videos of just individual Americans and groups of people who depend on Medicaid coming onto Capitol Hill asking Republican members of Congress, are you going to turn away these children, people who have disabilities, people who rely on this health care coverage, and just being ignored? That kind of will break through. But ultimately, whether or not the Republicans pay a political price, that's incumbent on Democrats. It also depends on whether these Republican members of Congress believe that they're going to pay a higher price with their own constituents or with the man in the White House.